Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy and Charlamagne the guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got some special guests joining us today. We have John Henry and Carey and Nadaeu. Now, you are the founders of Loop.
Yes. Good to be with you guys. Thanks for having us.
Now, I'm not going to front. I know all about your app. I don't agree with it, but my parents and my kids love it. So you want to break down your app and how it can benefit people or hurt people?
Yes, we are. We're in insurance, which is, boring to a lot of people. But in reality, it backstops trillions of dollars of economic activity. And if you could recall, back in the 60s, the greatest driver for wealth that was built in this country was the FHA program, that I know you're well familiar with, Envy.
Yes.
And the reason that a lot of Black folks could not get access to that low interest loan was because insurance providers refused to insure Black neighborhoods.
Correct.
Okay. And so insurance is the silent culprit that perpetuates a lot of structural bias against communities of color, not only in home insurance, but also in auto, where we are, and really across the board.
Yeah, auto insurance is tough because imagine you can afford to get a car, but you can't afford the insurance. Mm-hmm. That is one of the most difficult things, because I remember being a young driver, and if you have one accident or anything happens, your insurance is sky high. It's more than the car.
Yep. And so the way that these systems work, when we took a look at the way insurance is priced, what up, Charlamagne? When we took a look at the way insurance is priced, it's mad structurally biased. I couldn't believe it. If you don't own your home, penalized, right? You don't have access to the discount. If you have lower income, penalized. If you don't have access, if you haven't graduated college, you get charged a premium. If you don't work a white collar job, you get charged a premium. And so when you add all these edges up, what it means is that Black and Hispanic people are paying 2 times the amount for insurance. And in my opinion, that was not only wrong in terms of accuracy, but it was wrong in terms ethically and morally. So we set out to change that, and we started our own insurance company called Loop. Again, it is not a brokerage, so salute to my brothers out there and sisters out there brokering products. But when you broker a product, you're still selling State Farm. You're still selling Geico and Progressive. What we're doing that's different is we're starting our own vertically integrated insurance company, soup to nuts. And we're removing all the racist shit that's in insurance and instead pricing people based on how they drive, because we don't believe that your credit, your income, your occupation should effectively paint your picture. So that's kind of our story. And that's kind of where we're at right now.
I love it. I love it for elderly people. I love it for young people. But the problem is let's say, and for people that, let me explain a little bit. So basically, it's an app that follows how you drive. So it follows how fast you're going. It follows if you brake hard, it follows how much you drive. Mm-hmm. So for instance, myself or anybody that drives in New York City, you're gonna brake harder in New York City than somebody who brakes in DC. So it calculates how hard you brake, and your insurance could go up if you brake too hard too many times. Yeah. Also, when you ride, if you're in a car, it calculates how fast that you're going. Now, there are ways around it where you can say, I wasn't driving, I was in a friend's car, or I was in an Uber. But my problem is sometimes some cars, the brakes are hard and you brake hard regardless.
Right.
You don't want to put yourself, because that's why I never did it. The insurance company that I have was like, hey, put this app on your phone and we'll lower your insurance even more. But I'm like, now you can calculate how fast I'm going. Now you can calculate if I'm a hard driver.
Mm-hmm. If I'm talking on the phone, all that.
Brake too hard, I'm talking on the phone, and all of that. And nobody's a perfect driver. Nobody can sit here and says, I've never talked on the phone. Nobody can sit here and say, I never braked hard. Nobody can ever say, I didn't drive fast. So now if you calculate all that, I don't know how that benefits me. I think that might hurt me more than benefit me. Now,
or maybe you shouldn't brake so hard and drive so fast.
Well, it depends on what type of car you have. Like some of my cars have ceramic brakes and they brake harder than regular brakes, depending on the type of car.
And we rides around the Bugatti, so.
No, but in New York,
does Loop cover luxury cars?
No, so
not at the moment.
At the moment, but to your point, we actually tested a whole bunch of these incumbent applications, these old legacy systems. John drove, I drove. I like to say John's the worst driver on the team. I'm the best driver on the team. And we could prove that with math, which is really cool. But the idea is that we're actually measuring what matters. I don't think it matters if you hard brake in the middle of nowhere or you're speeding in the middle of the desert. Like, go ahead, open it up. What we want to do is put those behaviors in context. If you're hard braking in a really bad intersection where crashes happen all the time, or you're speeding around a road that has a bar on it at 2 a.m. in the morning, I want to be a little bit more worried about those behaviors and weigh them a little bit differently so that your price actually reflects the likelihood that you're going to be involved in a crash. So we've overhauled not just the rating criteria, but the way that your price is revised over time too, so that you're paying for what kind of risk you bring to the road. And if you're a bad driver like John, you're going to end up paying more. If you're a great driver like me, you're going to end up paying a little bit less.
Are you guys,
it's a fair criticism, Envy. I just want to.
Are you guys in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey?
Yeah. Born and raised in Washington Heights.
So you understand that you're going to break a lot more in New York.
I understand that the taxi cab driver is going to cut you off. You're going to have to swerve. So these were all things that we consider, but maybe you didn't consider this. Okay. If you are Black or Latino, you're paying 2 times the price anyway. That, by the way, was predetermined based on your personal situation. So I come from a low income household. So the fact that we were poor, the fact that my moms didn't, graduate from high school, the fact that we had lower credit growing up, the fact that we didn't own our home, all these things added up starts you at a super high base rate. So I think it is fair to be concerned about, your behaviors and being monitored, all this stuff. We set it up in such a way that doesn't penalize you unnecessarily, because I agree. We're not in this to wag our finger and say, yo, you're speeding your hard brake. That's not what we're in this for. What we're in this for is actually to change the insurance system such that it considers our situation as people of color. Because guess what? The system was not made by anyone who looks anything remotely similar to how we look. It's mostly white male. So that's women and that's people of color. So therefore, the byproduct of the way that we're priced will not consider us. And you know what? I'll say this. In the killing of George Floyd, that's what really inspired the thought behind this, because I realized in that moment, I don't know how you guys felt, but I was like, oh shit, the systems that exist are not changing. And I can't no longer count on Puffy and Hove to go and change it. Growing up, those are our superheroes, but there's only so much that they can take on. And when you start to look at the systems that really hold the bulk of the weight that make lives harder for everyday folks, it's the financial services industries. It's the industries that are boring, that are complex, that are gargantuan, that no one wants to touch, and that people feel inequipped to go and tackle. And that's why I salute Killer Mike, who got into banking. That brother used his celebrity power and mobilized a Black-owned banking situation when people aren't looking at insurance. And so anyway, Envy, I think it's a fair point, but I think if you see all the edges that add up against Black and brown people before you even get on the road, then I think you might think a little bit differently about the rates.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was going to ask also, during COVID and the pandemic, I've seen it, and I'm sure you guys seen it doing insurance, this amount of cars that people have been breaking into and the amount of stolen cars of going up, especially in New York and Atlanta. It's unbelievable, in Jersey. So what happens to people's rates at that time? Because in Atlanta, the police are telling people, leave your doors unlocked. Like, don't lock your door. Leave your windows halfway open. So how does that affect people's insurance? Because, again, it's affecting us, more than anybody else.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is an interesting problem. What we want to look at is how that phenomenon is distributed over space. So it happens in specific neighborhoods. It doesn't happen everywhere, but we should all share in the cost. So when someone gets their car broken into, we pool risk with everyone across the state. And so that cost is diffused across everybody so that not any single community ends up paying more, but that cost is spread out among everybody that you're pulled in with.
Yep. Also, this is a common myth that theft drives up like the cost of insurance. OD is true a little bit, but when you look at the things that actually cost the most, it's fatal. Unfortunately, it's fatal events on the road. Those catastrophic losses drive up the claims immensely. And theft is like but a portion of that. So I do think that you're right to be concerned with it, but I don't think that ultimately that's going to be the biggest driver of
And
cost
the real
for folks.
sad thing is that during COVID-19, despite the fact that no one's on the road, people are driving faster. There are more fatal crashes and more people are dying in fatal crashes. So it seems really backwards, but the reality is that actually it's becoming more dangerous.
My insurance actually went down during the pandemic because they were like, nobody's driving. So, it actually went down. Now, what about somebody, let's say that's a driver, right? They don't stop at speed bumps. And you can tell because the car bounces. Can y'all predict that too?
Yeah, if you don't stop at speed bumps, you're not, insurance is going to be a problem, but your whip is going to be also another
Well,
problem.
you're not supposed to stop at a speed bump. You're supposed to slow down.
I wasn't talking about you, Yi. Why are you so
I didn't say that. I wasn't talking about me either.
Yeah, so this is a good point, right? So other carriers, when they say, safe driver, say 40%, all that kind of stuff, right? What they're measuring with your phone is you speeding and hard braking. But what we have that's proprietary to Loop is we also have an understanding of the roads. So we have proprietary data. We've collected over 100 million car crashes going back 15 years in 27 states. We pair weather data, roadway infrastructure, traffic volume. So effectively, we have almost like a God level understanding of which roads are dangerous. And then
So it's in context. You put it into context.
Beautifully said. That's exactly what we say. We take your behavior and contextualize it. Therefore, we know when roads have speed bumps or things of that nature. So yeah, I mean, effectively, look, all we're looking to do is day one, we make a pledge. We're removing credit score from our rating criteria. We don't look at credit score. We don't look at what your education is. We don't look at what your occupation is. We're also the first insurance program that's gender inclusive. You don't have to specify if you're male or female. What we're saying is, we're not going to take any of those things that has unfairly categorized people of color as high risk. We're taking all of that out. We're measuring only what matters. And as a result, you will get much more affordable rates with Loop. I can assure you.
How does one even start their own car insurance company? I can't even imagine what that process is like. To say, you know what, I'm going to start.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
Carey, you want to take a stab?
I asked the same question, Angela. Tried to figure that out myself. It's a complicated process, but it's not that impossible, right? You set out with an idea that you want to invent something new and different, and then you bring, just like any other entrepreneur, people around you that can help sort of fill in the blanks where you don't know step one or step three to help you get to the next level. But in general, we're what's called a managing general agency. That requires us to have insurance carrier that works with us, a reinsurer that works with us. And importantly, we're capitalized. So we went out and raised a $3.25 million fundraising round. I'll let John talk a little bit more about that in order to sort of get off the ground.
Yeah, but I also want to double click, Angela. It's a great question. Like, this shit is hard, right? It's hard. We're starting a financial service that's just regulated. You had to have mad technical proficiency. You have to also be able to, raise money. And before I started this, I had started a venture firm that focused exclusively on investing in women and founders of color. So I know a little bit about this road. It's a hard road to walk. It's a hard road to walk if you're anything but a white, tech bro from Silicon Valley, where investors look at you as a plus if you went to Stanford or Harvard. I dropped out of BMCC right here in New York. I didn't go to school. I also have never worked a corporate job. I was working as the doorman when I started my first business and got into hustling dry cleaning. I was lugging people's sacks of laundry up and down the train, and then got a little storefront in Harlem. And I went building up my business chops that way.
At the age of 18, right?
At the age of 18, that's right. And over time, though, your confidence starts to grow. And just like how you guys, and I want to commend you guys on the beautiful platform that you guys now have. You guys now move culture. And so your sights for what you feel you can do has now heightened. And so I've gone and tackled a lot of problems. And this is a problem that scared me. This is a problem that I felt inequipped to do. This is a problem that I felt would take an ungodly amount of money. And I feel like I use fear as a compass. When I get scared about doing something and I feel like, I could potentially fail, but I feel like it's needed and it's worth taking it on the chin and going and doing it anyway, then we're going to try and take it out step by step. And so that's what we've done. And as Carey mentioned, we are reinsured. So we design our own program, but we have the big guys behind us that offer the capital. And at this point, it's just a matter of growing. And yeah, we're just betting on that we can build a big business, making our communities feel like a VIP instead of making them feel ripped off.
Because the other issue people have is if they do get into an accident, how hard is it to access that money from your insurance company? So can you speak on that as far as Luke?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're off the road. You're off the road. If you got minimum limits, you find out in that moment that your whip wasn't covered. Their car got covered. Your whip's not. So where does that leave you? Asked out. Now that's really a choice that you as the consumer make. We can't, and no insurance company can force you to choose any policy. But what we can do and what we do in our mobile app when you sign up is we try to educate the consumer the best we can and let them know, yo, if you choose this, your whip will not be covered, right? And so you pay a little bit extra, you can get the full coverage. So those are things that we bake into the sign up flow because, yeah, we know that, being in a situation where you don't have your car could affect you being able to make money. And so we pay our claims super fast. We make a promise that claims will be resolved in no longer than 10 days. So you can get insured on the app within 5 days and claims will be paid out no longer than 10 days, most commonly within 3 to 5. So that's our pledge to the consumer because we understand what it's like to be without a car and not being able to get to work.
What's the biggest amount as far as expensive car that you guys cover? Is it 50,000? Is it 70,000? And what age? Because I know a lot of times you have a lot of new drivers. Like I have a college kid who got a license. And
Smart questions.
I got a 17-year-old that just got his license, and my insurance is going
to cover him.
Well, I was just going to say, in that philosophy of measuring what matters, right? Age still does matter because your driving experience, you're behind the wheel and you haven't been interacting with weird situations on the road for very long. So your age still does, and your driving experience still does matter. If you drive an expensive car, unfortunately, the bumper is a little bit more expensive to hit if somebody backs into you in a parking lot. So it's important to note that, like, while some things are structurally biased, some things still make sense to include. If you have mad points on your license, like, you're going to get a higher rate no matter if you come to us or somebody else. But the promise that we're making is that, like, we're dropping all of the stuff that is really unfair for you. Like, your son, if he didn't have a credit score that was very high, is going to get dinged. Well, he doesn't really have much of an opportunity to build credit.
Right.
He's unmarried, he's single, he lives with a bunch of roommates. Again, he's going to end up paying a lot of extra money for no good reason, because he's no more likely to be involved in a crash because of those factors. But he is because he's probably a young kid in a really nice car. Fair enough.
All the things that have nothing to do with driving.
What cars do you cover? What don't you cover? At what price?
We cover most cars. We right now in V1 version 1.0, we are not covering luxury cars because they're more expensive to cover. So we're not covering Mazzi's. Are we covering Benzes, Carey?
Yes, Benzes are included, but like
Benzes,
Bugattis, McLarens, like anything you can see on a racetrack.
A lot of insurance companies will cover those anyway. So I'm like, but you cover your BMW, your Hondas, your
100%. We cover all that.
Real nigga cars.
Real OG cars.
That's right.
Charlamagne, do you drive?
Yeah, I drive.
What you pushing, man?
Can't lie, because I seen your car outside. I ain't gonna blow you up. He got a 2000.
That boy drives a Kia Soul.
I'm getting a Hyundai. I really am. I'm getting a Hyundai.
You getting a Hyundai? Okay.
I got a Hyundai. My Hyundai works. During the snow, my Hyundai was the best car I have. The Hyundai Sorento. $149.99 a month, and it works like a charm.
Tried and true, man. Tried and true. Yo, one thing I want to highlight too is, like, man, insurance is boring. It's dry. But like, I just want to underscore that the reason I'm passionate about this is not because of the auto itself. It's because we've been played by systems that benefit from us when we don't consider, what goes into these systems, right? We take it as it is. And when you take it in stride with insurance and banking and all this thing, all these edges add up, man. And then what you get is the byproduct of us, being generally lower income, not owning our homes, being, all these factors. But I think that there's a lot of forces at play that really have to be questioned. You've really got to reconsider it. And then you got to have the balls and the tenacity and the energy to say, I'm gonna do this shit different.
Mm.
And I'm not gonna start a brokerage. I'm gonna start the whole damn thing and give Progressive a run for the money, give the General a run for the money, give Geico a run for the money, because you know what? I just feel like the power of the community is something that's slept on. And when you can have someone that's a bridge between, you know, this world and our world, I think that that's when you can make revolutions happen.
I don't think
I just wanted to double click on that.
Yeah, I don't think it's dry at all. I think it's necessary. And you know, for all of those companies that you just named, why can't there be another one that is more beneficial to us? Like, I don't think what you're doing is dry at all.
Facts. I appreciate that.
That's right.
And I just think in everyday life, how crippling it is for people who need a car for work or for a family, take care of family things, but they don't have insurance, and they take that risk because they couldn't afford the insurance to drive without insurance. And then God forbid something happens, and now you're really in the hole like crazy.
Yeah, it can be financially like super crippling if you get caught with riding without insurance, or you get
bankruptcy
accident without insurance. One thing I wanted to mention is, like, I think a lot of industries bake it up to like, oh, the algorithm is so complex and so opaque and like hard to understand. And they do that intentionally so that no one probes, no one has the grit and the tenacity, but also the like capacity to ask important questions using statistics and using that like complex math brain. So one of the cool things about John and I teaming up is that like we can actually consider the lived experience of people that don't benefit from the current model and actually probe into those algorithms and fix those algorithms from the inside out. Because it is true. Like, if you're without your car, you can't take your kid to childcare. You can't get groceries at the grocery store. You're lugging bags down the block. Like, we've lived that experience, and that's just not something I think a lot of insurance carriers have thought about.
Charlamagne, you posted something the other day. It was Indian guy's name is Shamath.
Yeah.
And he was like, yo, there's 100 motherfuckers who run the world. Right.
That's
And
phenomenal.
and one thing I learned at my last company when I had my fund, we were in the room literally with private equity billionaires. We raised capital from them. And it gives me chills to think that there are indeed a limited amount of people who control so much capital that they can impose their worldview. And a lot of these cats, like Warren Buffett, they end up buying insurance companies, because if you think about it, insurance companies collect a premium up front.
Yeah.
So it's a very cash rich business. And then they make most of their profits invest in the premiums. So they're actually incentivized. That's why they pay out the claim so slowly. They're actually incentivized to hold the cash,
Right.
make a float on it, make 3-4% on it, and then pay you out as slowly as you can. So anyway, just threading the needle here, I think, you know, even just beyond insurance, there are 150 motherfuckers who run the world. And I think we need people from our community who want to step up and see if we can impose our own worldview, our own set of considerations for our community, whether or not it's in insurance or real estate or banking or media, right? Mm-hmm. You can't be what you can't see. The fact that you guys are in the position that you guys are in, I'm sure you guys maybe do or don't think about this all the time, but you guys are inspiring millions of young kids out there who maybe never had this look of who a radio host could be every day. So anyway, I'm really proud of where we're at as a community. I must say, I think a lot of us are stepping up big. A lot of athletes are crossing into venture. You got rappers like Killer Mike crossing into banking. You got Michael B. Jordan, who I'm working on a project with, for example, is moving into producing his own things. And so anyway, I don't know, man. I've been on TV. I hosted a Viceland show, and you get pimped out when you're on those shows. If I could keep it a buck, you know, you don't get paid that well. You know, they use your image and likeness, and if you're not popping off, they cut you. And so I think we need a lot more of us in positions of ownership. I know it's been a common theme. Salute Nip, but just in general, I'm glad to see some ownership from our community, at least on the insurance.
And I was going to say that about you, John Henry, when you talk about people being able to see you, just for you being 18 years old, starting your own company, selling it. And then you did have the Hustle Show on Viceland that I know helped out a lot of people, having a venture capitalist firm. All of those things that people might feel like that's out of their grasp or not think that they could do it, but to see you're Dominican, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So just to see a person of color that is able to do those things, and you did it at such a young age, you know, you're still pretty young. And now you're starting with Carey, your own insurance company. those are things that I think are inspirational for other people to look at and see, you know, the work that you've done. But I didn't know you was getting pimped out with the Joe Pesco.
I always thought insurance companies were like, and not just, I'm not saying it because of you. I always
Thank
think
you, Angela.
insurance companies were robbers with no mask on. And this, I'm gonna tell you why. Paying insurance for 10 years, right? 15 years, and you never have a problem. You get into an accident. They pay you out your accident, depending on how much it is, then they either want to drop you or they raise your rates. And I just thought that was robbery. Like, how do I pay for 10 years? No problems, no issues, not a problem. I pay my premium, not an issue. I get into an accident because I'm supposed to, right? I'm supposed to have insurance when I get into this accident. So I have insurance to cover myself. But then when I get into the accident, insurance company pays, and then they drop me. Or then they raise my rates. And I just thought that was robbery without a gun. I always thought that with all insurance company, home insurance, if you get a problem with your house, car insurance, if you have insurance on your jewelry, you could have it for 20 years, you get robbed, and they don't want to insure nothing ever again. I just never thought that was right with insurance companies.
Yo, by the way, that's a very astute comment. Faceless robbers. There's a reason insurance companies get these mascots. Flo, Geico, the State Farm guy.
Y'all need one.
Yeah. Well, I think that we don't. I think that they know that they're these large companies that people can't quite put a face on, so they invest mad money to develop some persona that you feel connected to, because at the end of the day, it is kind of faceless. And I think that's a great point. And I think that a lot of people feel that way. And if we're successful, I think caring deeply is the best marketing strategy. I don't think that we got to rely on a fucking jingle. I don't think that we got to rely on a mascot. I think just standing for good values, hopefully will resonate with people. And that's what we're hoping for.
And what are your premiums as far as, is it what are your deductibles, I should say?
We have 100, 250, 500, and 1,000. So it's a full range. And on average, by the way, we will be 20 to 30% more affordable for people that are on the highest ends of the spectrum right now, paying the highest rates. We're going to be more affordable for folks. So I think the plans are reasonable. They're 6-month policies. We're flexible. We're committed to no fee as well. So we're trying to be as friendly as we can and really make a point. And hopefully, I'm looking forward to watching this a year from today and looking back and saying, wow, we were able to make something happen. And we shared the news on the Breakfast Club first.
Are you afraid? I don't want to say afraid. Afraid is not the right word. But being that you're Black, right?
Yeah. Dominican. Are you listening?
Yeah. I mean,
I know, man. I didn't want to just say, you might be Spanish too.
Hey, listen, we had that whole debate when in Dykeman, they chased out the BLM protesters, and it was like, yo, Dominican, but we're Black. So it's one and the same.
Exactly. So are you afraid that they may try to stop you because you are?
I am afraid. I'm afraid because I'm doing something that I've never done before. We're doing something we've never done before. So that in and of itself scares me. But also there are systems that don't want you to remove these factors from your insurance, from the rating criteria. FICO being one of them. Credit score is a monopoly, my guy. That shit is locked up, is lobbied. They put out a lot of research to support FICO and discourage people from removing it. So I think that we are facing an uphill battle, and I think that it is going to take a movement. But I feel confident that being rooted in the community has never failed me once so far, and I feel like if we could break through, then we could really, really fundamentally disrupt the system. And if we don't, then hey, we'll have gone out swinging big. But I'm feeling optimistic about this one. Scared, but optimistic.
All right.
Gotcha.
And where can people find Loop, just so they can, if they want to sign up or get more information?
Appreciate that. Head over to loopinsure.co, loopinsure.co. Find me on Instagram, folks. John Henry. I'm at John Henry Style. Find me on Instagram. Find me on Twitter. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm every platform that you're on. I'm on. But yeah, follow Loop. We will be live in Texas first. That's our go-to-market state. Strategically, huge market, a lot of us there. Then we're going to be in New York, PA, Illinois, Ohio. So, this business is hard. It's regulated state by state. Is hard by design. Takes a lot of capital, but I want folks to know that there's someone who looks like them trying really hard to make this shit pop off. So thank you guys so much for having us on your platform. It really means a lot to host this conversation. And it's my Breakfast Club debut. So I'm looking forward to being back in the future. I appreciate you guys.
All right.
Well, thank you guys.
All right, my brother.
Henry
Peace.
and Carey.
Peace, John. Peace, Carey.
Thank you so
Peace,
much,
guys.
Cheers.